The Christian meaning of enlightenment, as I was asked to talk about, has defined enlightenment in such a very, very individualistic, tiny way that really offered little gift to the world. I don't know all the historical reasons for that. My guess is, and that's all I can say, is that both in Eastern Orthodoxy and in Roman Catholicism, we aligned ourselves with empire. And once you align the message of a spiritual teacher with imperial thinking, there's a whole bunch of questions you can't ask anymore. And you can only see what you're told to look for. And if you weren't told to look for it, you can't see it. We didn't ask about enlightenment, even for the individual, much less for the corporate. What we settled for were what I call belief systems and belonging systems. Right? When you want to unite people, which is what empire wants, you want everybody to be conformed into one worldview, you really are threatened by any notion of inner freedom or inner awareness or consciousness. You would rather, to be perfectly honest, have people unconscious. And so you settle for belonging systems. And we look at most of the wars of Europe and Christian nations, and they've all been between groups that both consider themselves Christian, but you could see that the Christianity was identified, if at all, with their nationhood, with their rights as a people, or their image as a people, continuing into the First World War and in some ways even the Second. That the group you belonged to, the group you fought for, was your identity. That was your personhood. And even the churches were largely content with this. We were more Italian or German or French or Spanish than we were Catholic, even though the word Catholic means universal. We clearly never got it. It was much more our identification with the group. Religion is always looking for one absolute, one highly exalted absolute, because that tends to hold the group together. But we don't want to say what Jesus said in John 5:14, you are the light of the world too. I've never heard a preacher in all my years in the church connect those two phrases and show that they in some ways contradict one another, or not contradict, actually complement. Now, in Matthew 6, here's where he's really moving in the direction that we would now call either shadow work or a capacity to have a different set of eyes. And now enlightenment is something I participate in. Let me try Matthew 6:22. The lamp of the body is the eye. If your eye is sound, your whole body will be filled with light. But if your eye is diseased, your whole body, in fact, will be filled with darkness. In fact, if your inner lamp is in fact darkness, what darkness there will be. So, this could be straight Buddhist teaching. How you see is what you see. And it's all about cleaning the lens. And if you don't clean the lens, I see this in teaching contemplation. Most people do not see things as they are. They see things as they are. And we have not given Western civilization this kind of wisdom. We just haven't. You could remain terribly, terribly narcissistic, greedy, vain, egocentric, but just believe the doctrines of the church. And this was all the way to the top. You didn't demand transformation. So the Doctrine of Theosis, one of the phrases they use most often is from the second letter of Peter, the first chapter. He says, do you not know you are sharers in the divine nature? Now that's where it was put most directly. Once you get it, you can see that it's intimated It's hoped for, it's half believed and longed for all throughout the Scriptures. But it's almost too daring to believe it. You understand? It was called hubris or pride. We instead, with our dualistic minds, reminded humanity of its humanity and Jesus of his divinity. That's what the dualistic mind did to Western Christianity. So what's happening now, as we're reappreciating the mystical tradition, our inherent identity in God, the new seeing that proceeds from this inherent identity in God, and then the nonviolent attitudes then that proceed from that, we're calling theology, or some are calling theology right now, a turn toward participation. And I've heard that word used a lot here, beautifully so. That the religion I grew up with, I was raised in Kansas, all right, was very much not religion as participation, it was religion as observation. You observed the theater of the Mass. You observed the doctrines of the church as something to be intellectually assented to. But it wasn't an emphasis upon practices whereby you experienced it for yourself. And this is happening in all of our groups. The moving toward practices whereby you can experience your true state for yourself.